Okay, I think we are at just about the 9 o'clock start time. So I just want to welcome everybody to today's first essay virtual TripleM. So thank you for everybody for being here. Thanks for signing in on your webcam. As you may have noticed upon entry, you were muted. So I cannot hear any of you yet, but we do encourage you to keep yourselves on mute throughout the entire program and utilize the chat function. That way you can send messages privately to me or to anyone that's on the video chat, or send your questions to the whole group, and we will be monitoring those questions throughout the entire session today. So that's where we stand on the mute. Second thing I wanted to let everybody know, that we will be recording this series so that we will have it available to you after the fact. We do have two more sessions after the series, one on April 1st and one on April 8th. So we will have those for you as well. So once we complete the series, the entire recording will be available to everyone who has registered. And now I'm going to kick it over to Rita Ferris, Essays Board Chair, to welcome everybody.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Rita Ferris, and as Vanessa said, I'm the chair of Essay this year. When I'm not being the chair of Essay, I'm the president of the Northeastern Retail Lumber Association. I really want to thank everybody for their flexibility in supporting this transition from an in-person meeting to an online meeting. These, of course, are unprecedented times, making the roles of associations more important than ever. When our members are overwhelmed, we are the people that can show them what is possible. So I encourage you to take this opportunity to be the calm voice of leadership and to show your members how they can manage this crisis, just like Essay's Executive Director, Vanessa, has done for our industry. Today's event exemplifies what associations are all about. Today we have approximately 80 Essay members participating in the program, which has been updated to address the issues that are most pressing to associations. This morning, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Kiki L'Italien, who is the Senior Consultant at Tecker International. Kiki has been a leader in the association industry and an online community engagement promoter for over 15 years. As the host for Association Chat, which is an online community, magazine, and media platform for the association industry, Kiki's content reaches over 70,000 individuals in the association and event arena monthly. So please join me in welcoming Kiki.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And as much as I would have liked to have been in person talking with each of you and having a chance to meet you face to face, I'm also a little bit of an introvert, so this isn't entirely horrible for me to be doing this from my home office. However, it's a little bit difficult to actually read the room and to get an idea of what you're experiencing as well. Let's see, this says that, okay, I'm unmuted now, good. So what I'm going to do is, along the way, I'm going to ask some questions, and if you're watching so that you can type into the chat, let's go ahead and try to engage that way so that you can see what other people are answering, just like I would normally be asking you to do some things in the room and talking with each other. So with that, I think that we're in an interesting place. This subject of talking about in community we trust was a harder sell, you know, maybe a year ago when I really started talking about this. But these days, obviously, it's a lot more relevant. And I think it, you know, with the coronavirus, we're obviously all having to rely on our communities. And this is a chance for associations to really step up. What we're talking about today is something that obviously has relevance in our workplace, but actually has relevance all of the time. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of a personal story with you, and hopefully that will resonate as well. And it starts when I was 13 years old. And while community is everything to me now. And it's something I talk about, it's something I rely on, it's something I build, and it's the thing that I love. When I was 13 years old, I hated community. I absolutely hated it. My best friends from grade school had moved on and totally discarded me as their friends. And when I moved on, and I was at the top of my game, you know, sixth grade, queen of the school, and I go into junior high, and immediately things are different, right? A lot more kids, people who don't know me, and I'll go ahead and go there with all of you and just let you know that, I mean, I was awkward. It's Southwest Missouri. I have an odd name for Southwest Missouri, Kiki, you know, not kind of unusual. And as I had already reached my full height, I'm walking through the hallways and people mistook me for a teacher. This is not cool at 13 years old. And so right out of the gate, I am feeling rejected. Well, what no one knew at the same time was that this was a horrible year for all kinds of reasons. My parents had divorced. My grandfather, who was just really the number one, my hero, who was always in my corner, he had passed away. And just really, it was the worst year ever. I mean, if there was going to be a time to shelter and stay inside and be quarantined or away from a lot of people, practice social distancing, it would have been then. Like, that would have been a good year for me, but here we are. And what I learned about that was that, you know, community, while at the time I just absolutely loathed it, I also craved it. I craved it at the same time. And it's because as human beings, we are built to rely on other human beings to survive. So at the very core of us, there's a lot of, even if it doesn't matter if we're introverted, extroverted, it doesn't matter. At the very core of us, there's this thing, this survival mode that says, the way that we're going to most likely survive in this situation is if we come together. United we stand, divided we fall, right? And so even though, in spite of my hatred for community, then I still found myself in a community of people who didn't like community, right? It was a lot of people who were rebels and like pushed other people away. I say all of this because right now we're living in a time of a lot of loneliness. We're living in a time of social isolation. Even before social distancing and all of this, this was an epidemic. And such an epidemic, as a matter of fact, that in the UK, they actually created a position for people, a particular role that is called the Minister of Loneliness, all right, which is a very depressing title and absolutely true, though. There's a Minister of Loneliness. And this person's job is to go out and to try to find people who are socially isolated or bullied, or people who are not brought into the group in other ways, and to create community so that they'll be healthier, and it will cause, you know, a lot of, basically, if you're socially isolated, it's horrible for your health. You have a higher likelihood of dying earlier. And you also, it's bad for the economy. So there are all kinds of reasons why it's healthy for us to be connected with one another. I say all of that because a lot of us kind of in the past have downplayed the importance of community. Let's see, and I see chat opening up. Good morning, good morning. Yes, so a lot of us have downplayed the role and the importance of community because it seems to be everywhere. You know, we're able to go online, we're able to build Facebook groups just like that. I'm sure a lot of you have joined Facebook groups for people who are now teleworking, who didn't before. You are able to connect in all kinds of ways. And one of the things that I have witnessed, while many of us have been working from home now in a way that we didn't before, and kids are home and all of that, is that a lot of people are creating co-working spaces, daily meetings for check-ins, weekly meetings to, work out. There are all kinds of ways that people are reaching out to make up for the lack of community that they have in going out and actually seeing people face to face. But there's still this problem of feeling isolated because people don't necessarily feel seen or heard. So there's more to community than even that in-person contact. This is extremely important to understand now, because now for associations, this is our opportunity to do what we are here to do, which is bring people together. We are here to provide that community and to provide resources. And never before has, it been, at least in my lifetime, maybe in all of our lifetimes, where we've had the technology and the mission to bring people together and had such a critical moment where this is the time to do it. So let me go ahead and move this forward. All right. Now, at the same time, while all of this is going on, in the past, we've seen trust decline, trust in communities, trust in government, trust in businesses, just trust around the world, trust in media really decline worldwide. And Edelman has the Edelman Trust Barometer. Every year they do a study and they go out and they ask people in every country, how they feel about the government, how they feel about the media, how much they trust their employer, how much they trust non-governmental organizations like associations. And then they track it. And so they've been doing this for, well, over 20 years. And so now they have a pretty good body of knowledge, where they just completed the most recent version of this study and released that information. So this is from 2017. Trust was declining in business, media, government, and NGOs. And for this year, what they have really been focusing on since they released this is that even while trust is still in decline, NGOs are in a good place for having trust for ethical reasons. They're not seen as being as competent. So there are two different areas in which we can build that trust in our communities, and we can receive that trust and inspire trust in other people. And for associations and NGOs, one of the critical areas is incompetency. They might trust us to do the right thing, but they don't know that we know what we're doing. So I think that the thing that we have to think about while we're building our relationships and building our communities and building trust is, how are we communicating and doing the things that we're supposed to do in a way that shows that we're both ethical and we're competent in what we're doing, that there's a plan, and that we really have everyone's best interest in mind. So we're all connected in these ways. It starts from very young. We can't help but depend on somebody else. And then as we mature and as we move on through life, we're still looking for these connections. We're still looking for ways where we can grow and build and become more and more and more. And this is something that is inherent in being a human being. Scholars link trust in communities to successes such as stronger volunteerism and healthier bodies and economic prosperity. So if this wasn't convincing enough, this feel good, imagining little Kiki walking through the halls and being bullied in the worst year of her life, if none of that is something that would compel you to understand the power and importance of community, there's a link to the bottom line. There's a link to our own health. And so this is why you see people right now really, really reaching out and trying hard to connect, because everyone's afraid of losing this connection. So right now in the chat room, what I would love for you to do is to type in an answer to this question. What communities are you a part of today? That could be church, that could be, you know, things that you volunteer for, that could be your local groups. What communities are you a part of today? And let's just get a feel for some of the things that you're doing. And I see, so let's see, what homeowners association, I see that, church, volunteer, local group. Yeah. Fitness community, Catholic Church. Yes, Empire State. Yeah, we got the Empire State Society of Association Executives, PTA, YMCA tennis, fitness, community garden. I love that. Kitten Angels. What is Kitten Angels? I don't even know what that is, but I think it sounds nice. The Rabbit Resource, Cat Rescue. This is fascinating. So I'm seeing a lot of church and fitness, and then meeting planner groups. So what's fascinating to know is that, you know, while we have recipe groups, book clubs, but mostly wine. Yeah, you know, if this had been done in the evening, I'd suggest that we do like a little virtual happy hour at the same time. But, you know, it's fascinating that we have all of these different communities, and that while they're all very, very different, that the value that we get from them is oftentimes the same. And it's connection, it is shared experience, it's shared resources in many cases. We're going to talk about all of these different elements because there's 5 elements that you'll find in successful, thriving communities that everyone needs to be aware of. So let's see about, now that I've seen that, which is fascinating. Thanks, guys. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a little bit of salsa music that came on, and that is, you know, when we're in the room together, it's nice to have a little bit of music to jazz things up. If you didn't hear it, just imagine that that played. I heard it on my end. So Simon Sinek says the most basic human desire is to feel like you belong, because fitting in is important. It's important. We talked about why this element of survival that's built into all of us. What makes community so valuable to you? So I want to ask you that, if you can type in, those of you who typed in some of your communities that you belong to. We're finding out a little bit about each other, right? The gardener clubs, the gardening clubs, you guys should connect. The people with the book clubs, you guys should connect. But so growth, shared interests. Yeah, feeling part of something, friendships. Having support to raise kids together, right? Resource of information, making a difference, sharing information, ideas. These are great. Volunteering feels good. Yes, absolutely. And fun, let's not forget about the fun. Yeah. And personal support for each other. Absolutely. These are all the reasons why we want to be a part of something. It's not just survival, right? It's also fun. It's that connection. We get something from it. We're sharing information. We're sharing ideas. It feeds your spirit. Yeah, because we need to have that we need to feed other things besides our bellies. We need to feed our souls. We need to feed our spirits. So this is all really important too, because these are the things that people are getting out of belonging to your organizations too. They might have a primary reason. In fact, I did an interview on Association Chat with the author of Value Graphics. And the concept is that we're all the same age now, that while you can break things apart by demographics, that oftentimes, if you think about your graduating class, how similar are you to every single person that you graduate with? Probably not that similar. You might have listened to the same music, but it doesn't mean that you like the same things. And David Allison's saying that we're actually more likely to be connected by values. And that doesn't matter what age you are, it's about values. What makes community so valuable to associations oftentimes is that they do provide that opportunity for growth. It turns out he's done this research on all kinds of associations. And while by industry, it can vary a little bit, primarily the people who belong to an association are doing it because they want to they want to grow. They want to be able to advance. They are the go-getters that are seeing an opportunity to stand out or to become better because of their engagement with an association. And while mileage may vary, it's an interesting thing to think about that, yeah, that might compel people, but at a time like this, you know, when we're all facing the same enemy, which is this virus, and it's hurting us financially, and it's challenging us on a personal level, this is an opportunity to come together and to do things like share our resources and to look at some of those other elements of what we get out of belonging to community, so that we can provide those to the communities that we're giving to other people, the community that we're giving to other people. All right. So the brain and belonging, let's talk a little bit about that. This is a disgusting image, isn't it? It's as if, did we really need to see this, Kiki? I don't know. So while we're on the topic of survival, let's talk a little bit about tick picking. Now, it's a weird topic, but it's Friday. Let's get crazy. The thing about tick picking is this is an activity. It's a horrible activity, right? But it's actually an activity that provides a certain species to survive. And so Eric Edmeades did this Mind Valley talk a while back, and he is a researcher on chimpanzees. And turns out chimpanzees and humans have a lot of similarities that socially, when we look at the way that chimpanzees act and behaviorally, that's reflected in a lot of the behaviors and the ways that we act in our society as human beings. Weird, but true. And there's this activity that chimpanzees have that's called tick picking. And what they'll do is they'll line up in hierarchical order within their group, and each chimp will then in a line pick the ticks off of the chimp next to it, right? So the leader has somebody right behind them, and then right behind them is another, and they line up hierarchically. And of course, who gets at the end? Who's the one that gets left out? Is the chimp at the end. And it turns out that the chimps at the end are usually the ones that are sort of the outcasts. And they're the ones that, they're also the ones that don't usually last as long because of disease and things that are transferred through having ticks, right? And so if you think about the fact that this is how chimpanzees act in our own society, and it makes you wonder why we don't just get in a circle, right? Why the chimps wouldn't just get in a circle and everybody's taken care of. But in our own society, we have this tendency to just let the people who are hurt or different or other be out on their own. And because of that, there's this real fear of being left alone and not having support. One of the best, most primary things we can do on a very elemental level as professionals who are responsible for bringing people together is to inspire a sense of security and safety and this idea that everyone belongs, right? So it seems very woo-woo, but there's actually this very gut level survival response that you're taking care of them in a way that really matters. What we need to understand from that is that, you know, no matter what community is for you, what community you're a part of, what community you're responsible for, whether it's the PTA or whether it's belonging to a church or whether it's your association or association chat with its own online community, we have to be thinking about what is it that we're providing? How can we instill this sense of belonging and make it so that people feel like they trust in us and that they can find security and safety and really feel like they're part of something that's bigger. You always remember, support, and protect who or what helps you belong. In times like this, we really need to meditate on this idea, right? Really focus on this idea. You always remember, support, and protect who or what helps you belong. The most important thing that you could be thinking about doing right now is connecting with your people, with your group, and identifying where are they hurting, what fears are they facing. I'm sure we can all imagine, right? But we need to be thinking about how can they help each other too, because it's about bringing people together so that they're able to connect with each other. Connect to the next slide. So I should know a little bit about this. And the reason why is because with Association Chat, I've had a really interesting experience from going from building communities worldwide for associations and working on the association side. I worked for 3 different associations, building chapters worldwide and bringing people together online. And then I went to work for a consulting firm. And in the meantime, this thing called Association Chat starts, right, online. And while it grew organically and it grew beautifully, it was not by accident. It was not because there wasn't some thought that went into how to bring people together. And yeah, Vanessa's sharing, right? Thank you so much, Vanessa. She's sharing the link to associationchat.com and the hashtag ASINChat. Can we pause right here? Just pause for a second and say ASINChat. Try living down that hashtag for 10 years, okay? Right, if you're not laughing at home, you're not paying attention, take a swig of coffee and let's move on. Yeah, no, you just have to kind of lean into it. But yeah, you know, Association Chat has been an amazing thing. We have a private Facebook group that you can become a part of, private just so that people don't get spammed, with a lot of helpful conversation. But when it started because it was a natural thing to try to bring people together. I have this career in community, right? I used to build chapters and I used to talk about bringing people together in the early days. I'm talking MySpace people. I was trying to bring people together. If you can imagine, it was in regulatory science, like for a science field, in the regulatory area, and worldwide. I actually had people on MySpace, chapters on MySpace for a second before Facebook opened up and things like that. So in the early days, really trying to figure out a way where we could better communicate. So I built over 180 different groups worldwide. It was wonderful for when I was in my 20s, traveling and being able to build these things. But what I learned was that in building community, the things that you do in person are the things that you try to replicate and provide when you're online, or when you're in a situation like this where you're really relying on the digital. You know, this is never, ever, this whole online thing is never supposed to be a substitute for eventually being able to connect with people in person. Of course, we have this drive. It's also built into us. To connect as human to human and to be in person. But what we need to understand right now is that we need to look for the ways where we can look at digital and we can look at the tools provided to provide some of those inherent human connection points that we really, really need. And it's not just about us communicating to them, right? Communicating to our members. It's about connecting them to each other too. So I also worked for a little while with a social calendar app developer who is based out of New York. And it was all about building community around events, like calendar, things that would happen on the calendar. We would be, you know, weird events that were coming up. We were trying to build communities, spin communities out of that. So I've done a lot of research and I've really focused on this my whole career. I won't go into talking about the neuroscience. I would just say that if you want to understand a little bit about how to create a habit out of your community so that people go back, I did this really wonderful interview with Nir Eyal that you can check. You can read his book, Hooked, how to build habit forming products. But used this in order to build communities and hook people into communities so that they feel like they belong, and they also create the habit of coming back again and again. Now, I say all of this because these are things that I've applied in association chat. I didn't immediately think that association chat was just going to be, was going to grow to what it was. It was just an online discussion that started out as a crazy hashtag called AssenChat, where everyone had a joke for it every week. And it happened once a week on Twitter, right? But now we have over 500 discussions, like hosted discussions that have happened, over 15,000 on the mailing list. I've done over 300 interviews with people, over 72,000 monthly as far as reach. And it's been going on. In May, it'll be the 11th year. This is Gary LeBranch, who normally I would play my little video of him talking about what association chat community means to him, but I'll spare you a little bit. I don't know if you can hear it. So it was organic, but not accidental. What I want to talk to you about is the 5 things that I've seen over time. I've watched people come and go. I watched people try to create communities like this and fail. And I've also built communities for associations and watched them succeed and watch them fail. And so there are 5 things I want to talk with you today about so that you can understand what can make your communities healthier. And also, especially right now, you know, what you'd be able to do in order to really have a meaningful impact on the people that you're working with, your people today. All right, so here are the 5 things. People, of course, everything starts with the people. You really have to understand who they are, who your members are. I'll explain why this could be a little different as far as the lens through which we're looking at it, like how this could be a little different than what you might immediately think. Shared experience, shared purpose, resources, so shared resources too, and trust. These are the 5 key elements in a thriving community that I've seen where, you know, you can have successful communities for a while that are missing 1 or 2 of these things, but for the thriving communities, they all seem to share these same elements. And I'll come back to the 5 things, and I'm sure that you'll have the PowerPoint available to you too. You always remember, I'm going to go back to this and back to this. This is what I want you to really, really dial in on. You always remember, support, and protect who or what helps you belong. So, people like me, that's what Seth Godin calls them. I had the opportunity to interview him about marketing for associations. It's interesting because since the coronavirus stuff started up and everybody's been having to go home, he immediately went into offering a co-working space where, and this is really crazy, and somebody shared it in the community, association chat community, and that's how I know. I signed up for it to see what it was like. It was an online virtual co-working space. You have different rooms that are available. And one room is, it's like the silent car on the Acela or something. It's like you go in, nobody talks to anybody else, but you're just working and you can look over and see like just the random people who've signed in. It's like a study hall, right? There's another room where people are co-working, but you can also chat to the side or you can just be there. There's another room for people who want to actually brainstorm and so throw ideas off, you know, like if you don't have your team around you, but you're just you're used to shouting out and talking about ideas, random ideas. They're there for that. And he's testing this out. It's really fascinating. And I went in, and of course I went into the silent room first, and it was just weird because I'm like, I don't really need other people looking at me while I'm working. So, you know, I'm going to just pass on that. But it was interesting because he understands that the people who are watching him are people who are communicators, who are trying to figure out, you know, how to supply something that other people need. And what people need is to connect. And when you take away that ability to connect in person, what are you able to provide? It's actually brilliant to provide something like this. So in this first concept of this first key of people, who are people like you? What are your members needing right now? You know, what is it that they might be feeling or fearing or feeling like they don't have something that makes them feel insecure. And Vanessa says, yeah, we'll share all the slides and handouts for sessions. Rachel Sheeran provided a co-working hour virtually as well. And then she links to the Seth Godin. Boy, you are on this, Vanessa. Yes. So if you're not checking out the chat, definitely go check out the chat so you can get all these great links. But the thing is if you're not thinking about what are the people like you, the people who belong to your organization, it might not be exactly like you, but your members, who are your members and who do they see as being people like them, right? Their tribe, how do they recognize each other? What are the different qualities, elements, fears, challenges that they have? And once you really dial in on that, then you can begin to answer some of those questions. For association chat, you know, when it very first started, and this is, boy, doesn't this look old? It's because it is. It's like over 10 years old. In the very beginning, it was on Twitter. And so it was very niche. And the people today for association chat, the people like me are very different than the people like me back then, because the people for association chat back then had to be on Twitter really quickly. They had, so an early adopter, they had to have been connected to other people on Twitter in the association space to even know. They'd have to understand enough about Twitter to understand how to conduct a tweet chat. They'd have to, or have heard about it from somebody else. They'd have to have the interest in having conversations like this. And it's for associations. It's very, very niche. So we're going to be talking about membership models and LMS selections and, like, you know, your AMS and things that nobody else would be interested in, right? Very, very niche. And so what I started to hear is, hey, Kiki, and I'll go back. Hey, Kiki, this is really great, but I don't necessarily understand Twitter. And I think what you're doing is awesome about bringing people together, but I don't get it. I'd like to be a part of the conversation, but I can't be. And what I had to do then is to be more inclusive and to figure out, how do I invite people in who haven't been able to be a part of this? That was the moment when I had to personally decide, is this just a community for early adopters for technology, or is this a community that is larger for all association professionals, vendors, and execs who all want to work together? And if that's the case, then I need to provide the platform for them to be able to do that. What does that look like? So it was kind of backwards, but it was growing organically. And I knew that at that point, I wanted more people to be able to be part of the conversation. I interviewed this really fascinating woman, Radha Agrawal. And Radha Agrawal, she says, the most important thing we can do as human beings is to create community for ourselves and for others. And actually, I have her book, Belong, which is all about building community, over on my bookshelf. And so she spent, let me tell you about what she does. So Radha has a thing called Daybreaker, where she gets people to get up super early in the morning. And it doesn't have drugs, it doesn't have alcohol, but it's basically like a rave, you know, where people get together and dance. Happens on a work day, starts at 7 a.m. in the morning. And she had this concept because she was getting older. She didn't want to feel unsafe in the middle of the night. She still liked to dance. She still liked parties, but it was no longer acceptable in her life to be stumbling out into a dark alley in the middle, you know, at 3 a.m. or something like that, and going to work, right? And she didn't want that kind of lifestyle, but she enjoyed the community that she had in coming together. And she guessed that there were other people who felt the same. And she was right. So this started in New York, and she talked with a friend of hers. And so what they did was they scheduled the very first Daybreaker event in New York to happen early in the morning. And at 7 a.m. they had people could meet for yoga. And then at 8 a.m. it became a rave for an hour. And it had DJs. But instead of going to a bar and getting alcohol and all of this stuff, you could go and get green juice or a cold brew coffee or something like that. They had sponsors who would provide healthy bites. And it took off, and now they're happening worldwide. She's touring, or she was touring with Oprah on her big tour with Gail, having these big daybreaker events, and it just absolutely took off. But one thing that she said when I interviewed her was that they took 3 whole days to go back and forth about the first 300 people that they were going to invite to this event. Now, I want to ask you, because I can tell you for sure in working on events that I've done and for conferences, I have never spent 3 days focused entirely on who's going to be, I don't have that, right? We very rarely have it, but do we even spend 3 hours on thinking who exactly is the perfect person to invite to this thing and why? And they spent this 3 days really going back and forth because they wanted to figure out who would be the advocate, who are the people who would be the cheerleaders for it, who are the people they wouldn't want to be there because they would kind of bring it down for the first one. They thought it was really important to be extremely strategic about who was coming to this very first event. And I thought that was fascinating because I thought, what if we took a little bit longer to think about those invitations and that dynamic of the type of people that we're inviting, so that we could improve the success for the long haul. And this is somebody who really understands that first element of powerful community, and it's paid off in understanding about people. All right, yes, and I have to say, yeah, if you can find the Belong book, it's really, really great. She is such a creative individual. And if you've ever heard of, you probably have recently, you know, people have been buying a lot of bidets because of this whole toilet paper crisis that we're also facing with everyone purchasing the toilet paper. Bidets, you've probably seen a lot of ads and stuff for those. If you've heard of Hello Tushy, she and her twin sister, Mickey Agarwal, both are co-owners of the company Tushy, which creates bidets that you can also order online. So a little factoid for you there. Community in all kinds of ways. Maybe you don't want to be a part of that community. I don't know. So the commitment, who is the ideal member for your community? Who are the potential advocates? And so what I would love for you to do right now is in the chat, you know, I just want to take a little bit of a second to give you a chance to type in, you know, who are the potential advocates? Is there anything that I've just shared with you now that sparked some ideas for ways that you could look at your membership or targeting people for specific events coming up when we eventually get together?
I didn't hear the...
What's that? Uh-oh. Okay, so if you want to type that into the chat, then go ahead and just tell me if there are any ideas coming to you about how this might impact who is part of your people, part of your community. Ideas on how you're going to apply this. Our hotel partner community. Ooh. If we were in person, I would bring a microphone over to you to dive into that a little bit deeper, because that's interesting. You know, oh boy, don't you feel for our hotel partners? I sure do. Boy, this is a hard time for them, and they're having to let people go. So what does that look like for how we're supporting them and partnering with them? What are other ways that we can collaborate and connect? Yeah, I'd be thinking about that too. Your strategic partners, or strategic planners, I should say. Okay. And this is from Rita, Northwestern Retail Lumber Association. Yeah. Yeah. Take this idea of how you're looking at people and really start thinking about, what does it mean now that we're looking at more virtual, now that we're looking at more remote? You know, even when we come back to being together, we're probably going to have those contingency plans now. Knowing that this has happened in the back of our heads is going to be automatic. I bet you that Vanessa, and I don't know, but I'm guessing that Vanessa is going to be thinking, in the future, if we have to do this virtually, could we do it? How easy could we do it? What are the opportunities to do it, you know? So yeah, you know, if anybody, by the way, if anyone feels like they have something to say too, as if you were raising your hand, you can type into the chat box that, and if we have time to do it, then I can take comments too. So we have Janine who said 30 to 40 something staff nurses because they are the future leadership of our association. Absolutely. And wouldn't, boy, I bet they have some stories right now too. Really, really interesting. So we need to be thinking about who our people are to start, you know, being parts of some of our remote learning, our virtual programs. Who are the cheerleaders going to be? What does the shape of our membership look like? Has it changed? Charter school leaders? Oh yeah, yeah. So as you're thinking about that, let's move on to the second key point. So we have 5, we've talked about people. Let's talk about shared experience. Shared experience is amazing for bringing people together. If you have ever been stuck in an elevator for longer than 30 minutes with a group of people, you'll know what I mean. That shared experience, by the time you're leaving the elevator, you're like, should I add you to my Christmas list? Like, what am I doing now? It's crazy because you've had this weird, unique, awkward shared experience where you have survived something together. Well, guess what, guys? We're in the middle of a shared experience right now, for sure. With association chat, the way that I would apply it to what happened with the community there is that even though this started virtually, people wanted immediately to figure out when could they meet up in person. And so they were asking me, they were saying, okay, this upcoming meeting, so the American Society of Association Executives is going to have the annual meeting. Are you going to have something there? The Florida Society of Association Executives, are you going to be at that? Can we meet up when we're there? And people wanted to figure out how to meet in person. And so that is our drive, you know, that as human beings, we're trying to figure out how we can foster and build and make these relationships stronger. And so I started thinking, okay, what are ways?
Apologies. I couldn't hear what you said.
My watch is wanting to form a community with me too. But, you know, they automatically want to become closer as a tribe, as a community. And so I started doing things like creating t-shirts and I'm like, oh, I need merch, you know. This guy, by the way, was a Tuesday at 2:00 Eastern time thing for me for years. And it was a hobby. And a few years ago, I made it an LLC just to protect it because people started to kind of want to, you know, create businesses off of it and all kinds of stuff. And I was trying to protect it so that it had a little bit of structure around it. But, you know, really the thing was that people automatically wanted a way to start identifying with one another. They wanted a way to say, I'm part of the tribe. And so I created coffee mugs and stickers and t-shirts to help people identify, and they would send them in. You might see this guy climbing on walls and he does parkour. That's Dan Sheeler. My husband was with the luggage picking me up and thought he'd surprise me by wearing an association chat t-shirt. One of the members decided that she would, I guess, display grocery store stuff when she was going grocery shopping and sent that, holding up a pineapple and holding up chocolate milk. And so it's fun because, you know, I get these pictures from people showing, you know, that they're part of the same tribe. And so you need to think about how are you encouraging people to have these shared experiences where they're able to identify with one another and able to think of themselves as part of the same community. I have to admit that I'm still working on that. I'm still reminding myself that I need to provide those opportunities because, you know, you just kind of go with things and you get busy taking care, putting out fires. But we need to remind ourselves that those little elements that seem insignificant are very, very important. This is a picture of me. I'm a lot younger there, but this is when I used to work for the Optical Society of America. Now it just goes by the Optical Society. And you can see my little flags on my map in the background and these hats. So this is part of a story that I want to tell you. And that is, I had very little budget, but really big dreams. Isn't that always the case with associations? Little budget, big dreams. And we had a meeting coming up, and I wanted to figure out a way for people from all over the world, and these were chapter leaders who were going, some of them, you know, it was like maybe their first or second time coming to the United States. Some of them spoke English better than others. I was trying to figure out a way, how would they feel safe and yet be vulnerable enough to connect with each other when there are all these barriers standing in the way, and to do it quickly so that they could connect and feel like part of a community as soon as we got together. I didn't have a very big budget. So, but I did have a space. I had a space, and I had a little bit of money that I could spend on something. Now, the first automatic thing that people think about is, well, booze, you know, alcohol might bring people together. If you're able to supply a lot of that at a reception or something, that will lower inhibitions. But I didn't even have that much money, right? So I was trying to figure out how I could, you know, allow them, they had access to the bar, but how I could make it so it was safe for them to be vulnerable and connect quickly. And this is what I did. I went on to the Oriental Trading Company website, and I bought some of the tackiest, let's look back at it, tackiest hats I could find. These hats were, I mean, aren't they terrible? They're just really ridiculous. But I tried to find the tackiest hats I could find. And I thought, you know what? We're gonna all be on the same level when we go to this reception. No matter how dignified and fantastic and wonderful you are, to get on the shuttle bus to get to the reception, we're all gonna be wearing these hats. You have to have the hat, it's your ticket into this reception. So each person is wearing a hat. And it's very hard to maintain your steely professional demeanor when you have one of these hats on your head. So plus they could blame it on me, because I was the bad guy that was making them do it. So they show up, and at the reception, you know, I get everyone together, I make this little announcement at the front, you know, everyone, they're beginning to make the jokes, right? On the shuttle, they were making the jokes. Oh, yes, this is what I wear all the time, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And they're starting to forge these relationships. It gives them something to talk about. Small, seems very small, but it's a safe risk. You're allowing them to be vulnerable in a safe way, and it gives them something to talk about. So they get to the space, many of them are already talking, things are going, and what I did with the rest of my money was I had a mariachi band. We were in Arizona, so I wanted to have something that had a little flavor of, you know, the area and hired local entertainment. And so about 15 minutes into it, all of a sudden this music strikes up, and these guys start coming through, and people are like, what is this? You know, and they're not expecting it. And it created a little bit of a surprise, and it added this element of fun. And so they've got the hats and they're listening to the music. And the point that I'm telling about all of this is, you know, not to buy tacky hats, but really to think about what is it that gives people a shared experience, because from then on out, they had something to talk about for the entire rest of the conference. They had a shared experience. They could look at each other in the hall and go, hey, yeah, tiger print, you know, like they could do that. And it gave them something safe to talk about, an opening. So where do we see this happening right now? Well, people are connecting, they're having a shared experience. And so this article came out, and I just slid this into the slide deck. This article came out, and I thought, how perfect. Farts, cats, naked bodies, people are failing hilariously at working from home. Heroes, all of you. So shared experience, what feels better than a shared experience? Because it says, you're like me, we are the same. We are connected through this thing we're going through. If you haven't checked this out, you have to read it. It is laugh out loud hilarious, and it totally made my day yesterday at a time when I really needed it. this is an example from that was shared in that article. And this woman shared on Twitter, my kid just walked into my video conference, yelled, "Look at my penis," and hit the button on his fart machine. Working from home, going really great. And so how many of us can identify with that? You know, maybe we had a work from home day or two. We've dealt with school vacations before. But oh my gosh, who's ever expected everybody to be sheltered in your home at the same time? And it's not just for a couple of days or something. It's like, who knows? Who knows how long this is going to go on? So we're all kind of going through it together. It's creating a lot of great opportunities. And it feels really good to have this shared experience. And this helps build community. And Amy says she could be talking about my son. I know. Has any of this happened to you guys, by the way, this working from home? Hashtag working from home, you know, WFH. My kids make several cameos. Yeah, you have to read this article. It's so hilarious because people are talking about, you know, note to self, you know, make sure my husband's not on a conference call with all of the video open when I run past to go into the shower naked. You know, can you imagine that? Oh my gosh, so scary. Yeah, the trend on social media to change your pets and kids into coworkers. I have to hide from my kids upstairs in the bedroom. Yes, they all think that my Zoom is a chance to meet all of my coworkers. Please send help. I know. And going into this, and Vanessa can tell you, so can Rita, I was saying before this, I'm like, okay, my husband's going to come in here in a second and take the dog because, you know, so you know that downstairs, like right outside that door is chaos, right? You know, yeah, it's like that for all of us. My coworker just ate chalk. Yeah, my coworker needs to go outside probably right now. It's a funny time. I'm glad to be single with no children. True. So, you know, this is a chance for us to have these shared experience. My friend showed her daughter how to make fart noises under her arm. Is that educating her in science or math? So, okay, so see how this is, isn't it great? You know, we have this anxiety and we're able to share and laugh, and it's amazing. How are you supplying these opportunities to share and laugh and let people vent and connect with each other in your own organizations? You might be thinking, where are they meeting online, or how could I facilitate something like this for them? It might be worth it to have something where you're just like, you know, let's have a virtual happy hour where we can share our funniest work from home stories. You know, this has been a crazy week. It might be something as simple as that, but how are you providing a shared experience? All right, and also this is another example, the event profs, similar to Ask and Chat, less of a scary hashtag, event profs. So this is event professionals. We all started up about the same time. And John Chen from Event Profs has scheduled this virtual happy hour. And it's just a chance for everyone to get together and vent. That is literally it. There is nothing else planned around it except for let's show up and vent about what's going on. And boy, if anybody needed to, somebody, you know, people who are focused on hosting events, right? All right. So when was the first time that you felt like you really belonged? I want you to type in. And I love seeing George said, my home office is starting to feel like a WeWork facility. I know you're like, well, I guess I need to go supply the coffee pods for the crew, you know, like, you know, everybody's there the whole day. I've gone to, instead of coffee pods, it's like a pot of coffee. When was the first time you felt like you really belonged? So think back to, it might have been when you were a kid. It might have been when you were going through college. When's the first time that you felt like you belonged? The hospitality industry? Is that when you felt like I found my people? Choir, yeah, still awaiting that moment. Oh, Janine, this is your moment. Sports, my marriage, yeah. Sorority, I've heard that many times, sororities and fraternities. Swing dancing, daughter's birth, first dance class. This is warming my heart. Kindergarten, learning to do the Mexican hat dance. high school sports. I love this. And theater, Christmas with my family as a kid. I love that. And it's amazing, right? That feeling. This is the feeling that you want to, this should inspire you for the feeling that you want to give to other people, because we all need that, right? We all desire that feeling of belonging. And it's not as simple as just offering benefits or even offering a platform. There are a million Facebook groups out there. What makes association chat, I think, different, and what makes really truly any community different, is when you're able to help people to feel like they belong by reaching out. So the church that I go to, I heard a lot of people talking about when they used to go to another church, right? And you might have had similar conversations, and they say, well, I left. I used to go for 20 years. This happens in associations too. It's the same story. I went for 20 years, and then one weekend I stopped going, and I just never went back. And no one reached out to me. And how many of us have heard these stories or have been through it ourselves, where we've belonged to something and nobody noticed whether we were there or not, even if we spent a lot of time, building relationships, and that really takes away that sense of belonging. It takes away that sense that, you feel like, wow, it just never really mattered. And what we want to try to do, what we should strive to do, and we can't be perfect, of course, we can't be everywhere, but how can we help people feel like they're belonging, and that like they are welcome to our communities? We need to be thinking about ways to do that. Oh, and I see beautiful things happening over here, talking about the Empire State Society of Association Executives community and how welcoming everybody is. That's gorgeous. What a gorgeous thing to see and hear. And that feels good, right? Vanessa, right? Oh my gosh. So the message is this: whether it's an experience or a product, if there are people involved, developing a community has the capacity to take it to an even greater level. So I don't know where your Zoom chat is up on your screen, but if you move it around, for me, it's on the right, and it was covering up this beautiful mug that has my face on it. So I made up these silly association chat mugs. And if you were to zoom up really close, you'd see that in that little red circle, it says, shake your #AssenChat. And it was, I wanted to make it look like one of those old polka albums, like vinyl records. I'm old, but I wanted it to look like a little retro and fun. And Amy, I need that mug. We all need that mug. On the other side, it has a nice, very safe logo for Association Chat. But on this side, that's where the creativity comes out. And so, yeah, truly leaning into it. The thing is when you're able to provide those moments, where you're sharing with people, it's a little laugh. It's like, oh, we're all in this together. We're all part of the same tribe. So, then she's sharing the mug online and on social media. Other people see it and they're like, oh, I need to have that mug, or like, here's mine, and it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger, right? It makes them feel like they belong. By the way, in case anybody's curious, this is not the way I make my money. This is a hobby, and I'm lucky that if I get my platforms paid for. But Association Chat has just really become the passion of my life. Some people have tennis, I have Association Chat. So initiation, what is your welcome routine that creates a shared experience as a member of the community? So, when people become a part of the community, this is an opportunity for you to get to know them a little bit better, for you to understand, and no matter what you have set up, where people are able to become a member, how are they first connecting so that they can feel like they're welcome, or like they're part of something? Sometimes I try to do these welcome everybody on Facebook. They make it a little bit easier, where you can ask questions before people become part of the group. Where did you hear about this? Why do you want to become a part of the group is one of the questions I have. and it helps me to understand them a little bit better. But after they become a part of the group, you know, it could be one of those bulk messages, welcome to all of our new members, you know, but it's important for that not to be the only thing, because you need to figure out the very first time they're posting or they're engaging or they're interacting, how can you encourage them? Recently, I had somebody join the group and they were extremely excited, like overly excited, like type A, aggressively excited. And while all of this stuff is coming down on us and we're trying to figure out how to work from home and all of these different things, they were posting like over and over again, lots and lots of questions. And well-meaning, they were excited to find a group of people where they could ask the questions that they wanted to have the answers to. They were excited to create, you know, relationships there, but we're all dealing with a pandemic, right? So we don't want to, maybe the first question was good, but then by the like third one, you know, so someone privately sent me a message and said, hey, Kiki, this guy, you got to warn, I'm afraid somebody's going to bite his head off. You know, you got to warn him. There's nothing officially wrong. He didn't break any rules, but it wasn't in his best interest to keep going on that path, right? So I had to delicately, as diplomatically as I could, reach out and say, hey, you know, I'm so thankful you're part of the group. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're excited. And I can just feel your enthusiasm. I just wanted to give you a heads up that there are a lot of people who are worried about, you know, their meetings being canceled. It's the biggest revenue generator, you know, for some of them. And they're not sure how their businesses are going to continue or their organizations are going to continue. So they're under a lot of pressure and stress right now. So maybe asking about how they're set up and, you know, their structure and, you know, all of this stuff about association stuff. Maybe ask 1 or 2 questions in a day, but maybe not 5 or 6 in a row, you know, and pace yourself because you're going to be here for a while, and welcome. And I'm so happy you're here, but like rein it in. And thankfully he took that in a positive way and was able to like, you know, kind of step back. But, you know, that is the importance of having some kind of connection with people when they connect for the first time with your group, is whether it's to just explain a little bit about the community, whether it's just to say hi. Hopefully you don't have to rein them in like that, but you better believe that he knows that I've noticed, right? I've noticed him. And how can you build in some kind of welcome routine that makes it more like a party when people join so that they feel welcome? So with Ask and Chat, it started out with the tweet chat, then not everybody was on Twitter. I moved it out to a Facebook group so that people could connect in between the discussions. They need to have a place where they could go and talk to each other. It wasn't just about, you know, one to many. It had to be about how are they connecting with each other. I also created a website so that they would be able to go, and that would be the hub. That would be the place where they would get all of their official information, and they could find, you know, that would be the place that would house it would be the home, the online home. And then people could then engage when they were on the Facebook group. That's how I structured Association Chat. So where do your members go for meetings? How do they connect in between meetings? And how do you encourage and foster community between your members? You know, again, it's not just about having the platform. How are you encouraging them to exchange information with each other? You know, just like here, what I think is really great is that, you know, we have a lot of great information that's been added to this group chat. So I'd be thinking, wow, there are a lot of people who garden, and there are a lot of people who are part of book clubs, and there are a lot of people who like wine, and there are a lot of people who are gym rats and go to the gym all the time. And, you know, how can I maybe help them to connect, or how can I make it so that it's easy for them? One thing that is important to remember when you're thinking about building community is that you want to make it super simple. So especially right now when people are stressed out, you know, notice that I had a higher number of people respond. It was easier for you to respond when I asked, what communities are you part of, then it was easy to respond when I asked you, like, how are you rethinking how you're going to apply this to your membership, right? That's a deeper question. It requires a lot more thought. It's harder to answer. And you also, there are many ways to go wrong with it, right? I mean, you don't want to look stupid. You want to have a well thought out answer. It's in the Zoom group chat. You feel, you know, like you're put on the spot a little bit. The simple questions are the ones you want to go for, the ones that encourage engagement. So like if somebody saw PTA and somebody was like, oh yeah, or somebody said Girl Scouts and somebody said, I'm a Girl Scout leader, it is easy. Nobody can really judge you on that. You know, nobody can really, it's just an answer, and it helps people to feel like they understand a little bit more about you. And that encourages, it's a safe way to be vulnerable and connect so that, you know, it's easier for people to engage. Harder questions are never going to get the same kind of engagement unless there's a lot of controversy going on. And that's sometimes necessary, but it's not the thing that you want to foster all the time because people get worn out. All right. Shared purpose. So, all right, moving on. Shared purpose. All right. Right now, shared purpose is, in addition to your mission, we have a shared enemy. We have a virus that we're all fighting against, that it might be hurting our industries, probably is, and is challenging our members. Absolutely it is. So our shared purpose is both what our mission is for our associations, but it's also in trying to figure out the best way to get through this, right? So I'm being reminded, thank you so much, that we're at the 5-minute mark. I want to go ahead and, yeah, love this, all women on this slide. Thank you. Yeah, you know, I did this thing talking about shared purpose. I did this thing last year that because of the coronavirus, I couldn't do this year just because we couldn't meet in person. But I wanted to have something on the why associations matter project. So many of us belong to associations and association chat. Obviously, associations matter, right? And we know they do because we advocate, we bring people together, we protect, you know, we help them as far as what it is, what our people are trying to accomplish. So there's an association for every industry on this planet, and it's a very important role. It's a very important role that we play. Created this project because I wanted to capture the stories from people who work in the association industry to share why associations matter to them. The role, like what they see is the significance of the role that they play in their association. Unsung heroes, right? And it was so great to get all of these stories captured and to get these photos of people. It's like a tapestry of people sharing a moment in time of what was important to them as far as belonging or representing an association. Lots of amazing stories that came as a part of that. And it's entirely because Association Chat, part of the purpose is supporting our association professionals, right? So what are the stories? What is your community's shared purpose right now? And how do your members share their stories? So with this, I want to encourage you to think about how you can capture your own members' stories. And also thinking, what's your shared purpose right now? This is something that we should all be thinking about in light of recent events, right? And this ongoing event. What is it that, you know, you can do in order to not just bring the community together, but really magnify that shared purpose that you have? What role will your association play? And I don't mean to just talk about associations, because it's really all of us who work in businesses that support associations as well. Like, what role are we playing in that? So I'm going to move past this. We see, you know, different, usually what I would do is talk about these different areas and how this feeds into supporting the shared purpose. This is part of the community asking questions, and this is the role that Association Chat plays. How can I help? You know, this is the problem we have. And this is how it's impacted me recently. I created a hire me list so that people who have lost jobs or in between jobs offer help, you know, can freelance. Many people who maybe their focus is on supporting events for associations, they're not having events, you know? So like, what can these people do right now for new things that association executives need help with? And also, what are the new tasks that associations need help with where they're looking for specific talent, maybe not to hire on full time, but for right now. So I created this hire me list so that people could sign up and find each other, sort of, you know, match opportunity and talent. So about community goals, you've got your first goal to belong and your second goal to contribute. So after people want to belong, it turns out that we all really want to contribute too. We don't just want to take, we want to give as well. And that's where we get meaning from our experience. Okay. You can have access to the slides after this, but I want to talk a little bit about, I want to make sure that we get to all the key points because we're about to break. I thought I had more time because I wasn't walking around, but then I built in a little bit too much extra, didn't I? So the fifth element, so we've talked about people and we've talked about shared experience and we've talked about shared purpose and we talked about shared resources, so the shared resources with the Hire Me page. Let's talk about trust. So 4 was shared resources. The 5th thing is trust, and that is truly the hardest thing to do. Do you trust your communities? We talked about trust in the very beginning. I started out with that because it is so key to be thinking about that all the time. How do we build trust? Tom Peters said, technique and technology are important, but adding trust is the issue of the decade. We have contractual trust, communication trust, competency trust, caring. But these are the 5 areas you need to think about with fast tracking trust. And this is what you need to think about right now if you want to build trust in your community, okay? So we talked about the 5 elements that build community. We're talking about, really quickly, the 5 elements for fast tracking trust. I know you need to break for your coffee, but since we're virtual, I'm going to take like 2 more minutes. So fast tracking trust. You need consistency. Thank you, thank you. You need consistency. You need frequency. You need intention, clear intention, right? Respect and influence, you could also call it borrowed trust, all right? Now, one could say, can you really fast track trust? Don't we build this over time? Well, yes, you can. Yes, we build it over time, but yes, you can fast track trust. How do you know? Because every time you get into an Uber driver's car, you have to trust that they're going to take you where you're going. Every time you have to quickly decide whether or not you're going to trust someone's opinion, you're looking for cues. You're looking for visual cues. And these are things that as humans we've developed over time that teach us that we can trust things. They're not always right, but it's the way that we respond. It's the way that we have learned that that berry is safe to eat and that berry isn't, right? We learn. And so consistency and frequency, you can think of these together because the more consistent and the more frequently you do something, the more people expect it. They learn to trust that you'll at least do that one thing, whatever that thing may be. So association chat, I had it every Tuesday at 2 for years. Tuesday at 2, Tuesday at 2, Tuesday at 2. Years later, maybe things come up at Tuesday at 2, but for so many people, association chat is Tuesday at 2. They just rattle it off. They don't even think about it. It's just like if you saw the same person walking outside your window at the same time every day, maybe the first day they did it, you wouldn't notice, but 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, 2 months in, it become the thing that you trust that much. So you at least know enough that I see that person, they do this every day, I can trust that that's the thing that they're going to do. And this fast tracks trust for associations because if you're communicating with people and you're consistent and frequent with at least one thing that you're doing, you're training the brain that it can trust that element of you. And that's a little bit more trust in your pocket. Intention, be clear with your intention. We're really great at figuring out if people are marketing to us. aren't we? And right now we're getting a lot of emails that have people marketing to us that are pretending, or maybe not pretending, but it has this layer of, we're concerned for you, buy our thing eventually. Right now you can have it for free, but buy our thing. And it's not landing well, is it? How is it really making you feel? You know, I know how it's making a lot of people feel, because there are conversations happening. Oh my gosh, emails flying. I got another one. What do you think about this? It's not that marketing is totally wrong. It's just that right now people are putting on their oxygen masks. Intention is everything. What is your intention with something? It's not that what you're providing, it isn't a good time to talk about it, but what's your intention? Are you truly trying to help, or are you trying to sell? People will know. Respect. Always offer respect, even if the other person is disrespectful. You can set healthy boundaries, but if you lower yourself to, you know, sometimes we have very harsh people in our communities. We can have healthy boundaries. We can establish that certain things, you know, don't bully other people, but always treat others with respect in your communities. I think you know why, right? All of us, we know why, because that can end up harming us, and then people don't feel safe from you. And then influence and borrowed trust. And these are the influencers in your community. And what kind of influencers in your community can allow you to borrow trust from them? You know, they've got a good name in the community. They believe in you, and having their testimonials, having them say that you're doing a good thing, is helpful to your group. So those are the 5 ways that you can fast track trust. I'll add hugs post-coronavirus, because that actually, I misspelled coronavirus, but post-coronavirus hugs, because that actually really does increase your serotonin. It increases the endorphins in your body, and will allow you to feel like you can trust somebody more. That is true. Post-coronavirus, right now, social distancing. So how can you build trust faster and regularly with your members? What will be the hardest part of tracking trust for you? What I want you to think about when you're thinking about the people, the shared experience, the shared purpose, the resources, and the trust with everything, is that, you know, it's all about us coming together. We're really all in this together, and never before like we are right now. You guys, we are in the best position possible to really lead and provide a meaningful community to our people. This is the time that we do need to think about our community as a way to support each and every member who's a part of that community, and to really think about the meaning behind what it is that we do. And these can be some of the most meaningful moments in our entire careers if we choose to use them that way. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, for giving me a few more minutes than what I had originally. And while, as Janine's saying here, while we're physically distancing, let's continue to be social together and build our own community. And with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll hand it back over to Vanessa.
Great, Kiki, thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful. I think we all learned a little something and take away from keeping our community today, and how we are today. You know, continue that momentum and stay connected with each other is really important when we're all faced with having to stay home for the time being. So thank you. I want to give everybody about 10 minutes. I'm going to work with the next presenter. So if you want to grab a cup of coffee, you're welcome to unmute yourself. If you want to chat with a friend, go ahead and do that. But we'll take about 10 minutes and we'll get our next speaker up and going. Bye, Kiki. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.